They don't ignore you. They erase you, piece by piece, meeting by meeting, with a polite smile that is more lethal than any blade. You've been conditioned to believe that your value is tied to your contribution, that merit is the currency of the modern world. That is the first and most profound lie you were ever told. The corporate machine does not run on innovation or hard work. It runs on the quiet, systematic absorption of individual will into a faceless collective. It grinds your identity into a fine powder and calls it team synergy. You were in that meeting, the one with the stale coffee and the palpable tension of ambition. You saw the opening, the perfect moment to present the solution you'd lost sleep over for weeks. You spoke up. Your voice was clear, your logic irrefutable. You laid out the plan, the one that would save the quarter, the one that was undeniably yours. And what was your reward? A slow, deliberate nod from your superior. That condescending, patient smile that says, "Thank you for your input. The adults will take it from here." He didn't just dismiss you. He disassembled you in front of your peers. He took your intellectual property, your very thought process, and held it up to the light. Then, with the practiced ease of a career parasite, he rebranded it. He used softer words, added a meaningless buzzword or two, and presented your breakthrough as a minor talking point his team had already been exploring. You sat there, paralyzed, as he received the credit. You watched the sycophants around the table nod in agreement, their eyes glazing over your existence as if you were a ghost at the feast. He didn't steal your idea. He stole your reality. He made you a spectator to your own success, a footnote in your own story. The walk back to your desk was the longest journey of your life. Not a single person met your eye. It wasn't out of malice. It was worse. It was out of irrelevance. You were no longer a factor in the equation. You were a variable that had been solved and discarded. You sat down in your ergonomic chair, in that vast, open-plan tundra of performative hustle, and you became invisible. The fluorescent lights hummed a monotonous hymn of your defeat. The air, recycled and sterile, tasted of failure. Across the sea of identical desks, you could hear him laughing, the sound echoing with the weight of your stolen contribution. He was celebrating his victory. He was being congratulated for your mind. And you just sat there, drowning in the silence. A perfect cog in a machine designed to run on the fuel of your quiet desperation. This is the modern prison. It has no walls, no guards, just the silent collective agreement that you do not matter. Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote of the underground man, a figure of hyperconsciousness so aware of his own humiliation that he was paralyzed by it. He said, "To be too conscious is an illness, a real thoroughgoing illness." You, sitting at that desk, were not just an employee. You were the underground man in a glass cage, cursed with the perfect, agonizing clarity of your own insignificance. You understood in that moment that you weren't just losing a battle for recognition. You were losing the war for your own existence. The system wasn't broken. It was working perfectly. It was designed to identify and neutralize threats to the established hierarchy, and your competence had made you a threat. Your desire for validation had made you a target. You played their game by their rules, and your reward was to be erased from the board. But in that abyss of silent humiliation, a different kind of consciousness began to stir. A cold, reptilian clarity. What if the illness wasn't the consciousness of your own pain, but the belief that you had to cure it by seeking their approval? Dostoevsky's work isn't a manual for victims. It's a blueprint for understanding the true mechanics of the human soul. People are not afraid of strength. They are terrified of being truly seen. They build their entire lives, their careers, their personalities, around a fragile facade of competence and control. They fear, more than anything, someone who has the perception to see the cracks. He sat there, a ghost in the machine, and made a vow. He would stop speaking. He would stop trying to be heard in a room full of people who only listened for their own echo. Instead, he would become a listener, a silent, methodical observer of the human ego. He would learn to decode the language spoken not by mouths, but by the flicker of an eye during a video call, the subtle shift in posture during a negotiation, the desperate insecurity hidden behind a wall of corporate jargon. He would no longer be the voice they ignored. He would become the silence they couldn't fill, the unnerving stillness that forced them to reveal themselves. He would become the mirror reflecting their own deepest anxieties, and he would let them shatter themselves against their own reflection. This is the turning point. This is the moment you stop pleading for a seat at the table and begin to study the psychological flaws of those who built it. Before we dissect the Dostoevskian strategies that transform silence into a weapon, and observation into a tool of absolute dominance, you must make a choice. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and activate all notifications. Give this video a like to signal that you are done being a ghost. And in the comments, tell me the city you are watching from. Let the world know where the new centers of power are being forged, one silent observer at a time. Your transformation begins now. The anatomy of your defeat is not a single, catastrophic event. It is a slow-motion collapse, a death by 1,000 concessions, each one so small, so reasonable, you barely noticed the transfer of power until you were left with none. You were not conquered by force. You were dismantled by consent. Your authority was not stolen. You gave it away piece by piece in exchange for a quiet life that never came. This is the cold diagnosis of your fall, and understanding it is the first step toward reversing it. The process is always the same, a predictable sequence of decay that begins in the mind and ends in your complete subjugation. It starts with emotional concession. It begins with the seemingly harmless decision to absorb her negative emotions to maintain the peace. She is in a bad mood after a long day. The air is thick with her unspoken resentment. Your instinct, conditioned by a society that mistakes male stoicism for an emotional landfill, is to fix it. You ask, "What's wrong?" This is your first mistake. You have just made her emotional state the center of the universe, and your own peace contingent upon hers. She says, "Nothing," but her tone says everything. The test has begun. A man with an unbreakable frame would recognize this as her storm to weather. He would remain unaffected, a calm island in her emotional turbulence. He would continue with his evening, projecting a state of inner calm that implicitly communicates, "Your mood is your responsibility, and it does not have the power to derail me." But you don't do that. You press. You pry. You need to resolve the tension because her unhappiness makes you uncomfortable. You have just shown your hand. Your internal state is a puppet, and she is holding the strings. The first concession is made. You have agreed that her feelings are more important than your reality. She tested you. You yielded. She won. From this single concession, the next phase begins. The loss of control. Having established that her emotional state dictates the environment, she will now expand that territory. The argument is no longer about the dishes left in the sink. It's about your tone. It's about the way you looked at her. The subject of the conflict becomes your behavior, your character, your very essence, while the initial issue is forgotten. You find yourself defending your intentions, explaining your thought process, justifying your existence. "I didn't mean it like that," you plead. You have fallen into the trap. You are playing a game on her field, by her rules. The moment you start explaining yourself, you are in the subordinate position. You are a subject petitioning a queen. Dostoevsky wrote of the man paralyzed by the judgment of others, a man who is crushed by circumstances, but he is also crushed by his own consciousness. You are that man. You are so conscious of how she might perceive you that you lose the ability to act from a place of authentic self. You start to second-guess your words before you even speak them. You filter your thoughts, sanding down the edges of your personality to avoid causing a ripple in her emotional pond. This isn't a relationship, it is a performance. And you are auditioning every single day for a role you will never permanently get. The silence she deploys is a weapon. You interpret it as a problem to be solved, a void you must fill with apologies and supplications. But you are wrong. Her silence is dominance, not disattention. It is the unnerving calm of the predator who knows its prey has already been cornered. When you desperately break that silence with, "Can we please just talk about this?" you are not seeking resolution. You are begging for terms of surrender. This leads directly to the desperate search for validation. Your self-worth becomes intertwined with her approval. You stop doing things that you find fulfilling and start doing things you believe will make her happy. Your hobbies fade. Your friends hear from you less. Your world, once a sprawling map of possibilities, shrinks to the size of her smile. You tell yourself this is love. This is sacrifice. It is not. It is an addiction. You are chasing the high of her validation, the temporary relief that comes from her approval. This is the same pathology seen in the corporate world. The man who stays late, not to finish a project, but to be seen, staying late by his boss. The man who eagerly agrees with a bad idea in a meeting just to be on the team. He is trading long-term respect for short-term validation. He is the underground man who dreams of being insulted just to be acknowledged. He wrote, "The pleasure of despair, in the too vivid consciousness of your own degradation, it is in that there is a real, poignant pleasure." You have found a strange comfort in your own servitude. You buy her gifts after an argument, not as a genuine offering, but as a bribe for forgiveness. You are not giving from a place of abundance. You are paying tribute from a place of fear, and she knows it. Every gift, every concession, every "I'm sorry that you don't mean" confirms her power and deepens your deficit. She teases you about it in front of her friends. "He's so sweet. He can't stand it when I'm upset." It's framed as a compliment, but it is a public announcement of your domestication. You have been declawed, and everyone can see it but you. Now, you are fully in the grip of effective dependency. Her presence is your peace. Her absence is your anxiety. You check your phone compulsively, waiting for a text. Your mood for the entire day is set by the tone of her morning greeting. This dependency is the final nail in the coffin of your masculine authority. A man's power lies in his mission, his purpose, his unshakable connection to a reality outside of his relationship. He is an oak tree, and she can be the beautiful vine that grows around him. But you have become the vine, desperately clinging to her, unable to stand on your own. You have lost your center. When you are with your friends, you're not truly present. You're thinking about a text you sent that she hasn't answered. You're worried you said the wrong thing earlier. You have become a ghost in your own life, haunted by the specter of her disapproval. This is the moment your friends notice the change. They stop inviting you out as much, not because they dislike you, but because your energy is draining. You are a black hole of neediness. They see the hesitation in your eyes, the constant low-level anxiety of a man who is no longer the captain of his own ship. They see you ask for her permission for small things. "Let me just check with her first." And with those words, you announce to the entire world that you are not a sovereign entity. You are a territory under her occupation. The final, pathetic stage is the breaking of your own silence. Not the strategic, powerful silence of a man in control, but the desperate, pleading silence of a child who has been ignored. You let things build up, the small resentments, the daily paper cuts to your soul. You say nothing, telling yourself you are choosing your battles. But you are not choosing your battles. You are running from them. And eventually, the pressure becomes too much. You explode, not with righteous, controlled anger, but with a messy, emotional outburst. You bring up a laundry list of past grievances. It is weak. It is ineffective. It is the tantrum of the powerless. She will watch this display not with fear, but with a cold, detached pity. She may even cry, but her tears are not for you. They are tears of disappointment in your weakness. After your outburst is over, she will use your own emotional incontinence against you. "See? You're the one with the problem. You're unstable. You will be so exhausted, so ashamed of your own loss of control, that you will do the one thing that guarantees your permanent defeat. You will apologize. When you apologize for that outburst, you signed your unconditional surrender. You validated her narrative that you are the problem. You gave her the ultimate weapon, the ability to frame your legitimate grievances as emotional instability. From that point on, any attempt to establish a boundary will be met with, "Are you going to have another meltdown?" You have been checkmated. Perhaps you are listening to this and thinking, "This is too cynical." Relationships are about compromise. It's about being a good partner. Let's dismantle that objection with brutal logic. Compromise can only happen between equals. When one person consistently compromises their needs, their boundaries, and their reality for the sake of the other, it is not compromise. It is subjugation. You believe you are being a good guy, but from a strategic perspective, you are being a fool. You are teaching her that your boundaries are merely suggestions, that your no can be negotiated into a yes if she applies enough emotional pressure. No one is coming to save you. Society will not reward you for your martyrdom. Your friends will watch from a distance, and she will certainly not give you a medal for sacrificing your spine. She may say she wants a sensitive man, but she will not stay with a weak one. Women are biologically and psychologically hardwired to test for strength. Not physical strength, but the strength of your frame, your purpose, your resolve. She is constantly poking at the fences of your reality to see if they will hold. Every time you let her emotional state dictate your actions, every time you apologize for something you didn't do, every time you break your own word to appease her, you are failing her tests. And with each failure, her respect for you evaporates. It is a slow, silent process, but it is as certain as gravity. She tested you, and you failed. How many times have you apologized just to end the silence, knowing deep down that you were in the right? If you are ready to stop trading your power for temporary peace, then your re-education begins now. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico. Activate all notifications so you don't miss a single lesson in this psychological war. Give this video a like to signal your commitment to rebuilding your authority. And in the comments, answer this question with cold honesty. What was the last small concession you made that you knew, in your gut, was a mistake? Acknowledge the wound. That is the first step toward cauterizing it. The fall is not visible. It does not announce itself. It happens in the silence between text messages. It happens in your hesitation before you state an opinion she might not like. It happens in the yes you say when your entire being is screaming no. It happens in the office when you let your boss rephrase your idea and present it as his own. And you just nod along, grateful to have even been mentioned. You told yourself it was teamwork. You told yourself it was picking your battles. This is the language of the defeated. Dostoevsky's protagonist was acutely aware of his own insignificance, and that awareness was his prison. Your prison is your willful ignorance. You refuse to see the game being played. You refuse to accept that human relationships, in business and in love, are a constant negotiation of power. You cling to a fantasy of unconditional acceptance because the reality of the struggle is too terrifying to face. But your refusal to fight does not mean the war isn't happening. It just means you are losing it. The first and most critical step is to see the battlefield for what it is. It is not a home. It is not a work family. It is a territory. And right now, you don't even own the ground you stand on. There is no going back for the weak. There is only the construction of the new. Let that sentence burn itself into your mind. The man you were, the one who sat paralyzed at his desk, the one who apologized to end a fight he was winning, is dead. You will not mourn him. You will not hold a funeral. You will simply seal his tomb and walk away without looking back. His methods failed. His philosophy was poison. His belief in fairness, in merit, in the good faith of others, was the very architecture of his prison. To attempt to salvage anything from that wreckage is to guarantee your own reinternment. Your reconstruction does not begin with a feeling of hope. It begins with a cold, calculated decision to amputate the parts of yourself that are infected with weakness. This is not an emotional journey. This is a tactical demolition and rebuilding project. Your orders are simple. Your mission is absolute. First, you will cut the excess. Second, you will install silence. Third, you will control the reaction. Every action you take from this moment forward will fall under one of these three directives. This is the new operating system. First, cut the excess. Look at your life as a military commander looks at his supply lines. Anything that does not contribute directly to combat effectiveness is a liability. This applies to people, habits, and beliefs. That friend who always subtly puts you down in front of others? He is excess. Cut him. The habit of scrolling through social media, watching the curated lives of people you despise, feeding your own sense of inadequacy. It is excess. Cut it. The belief that her happiness is your responsibility? That is the most dangerous excess of all. It is a cancer on your soul. Cut it out with a rusty blade if you must, but get it out. This process will be brutal. It will feel like you are tearing your own skin off. Good. Power is not built on comfort. It is forged in the discipline of subtraction. You must become a minimalist of the soul. Your energy is your primary currency, more valuable than time or money. For years, you have been giving it away for free to emotional vampires, to corporate sycophants, to a woman who uses your devotion as a tool to measure her own power. The bank is now closed. The vault is sealed. From now on, every expenditure of your energy must be a calculated investment in your own ascent. This leads us to the first tactical maneuver, the immediate and total installation of scarcity. You will disappear. Not with an angry text message, not with a dramatic announcement. That is the behavior of a child throwing a tantrum. You will vanish quietly, completely, and without explanation. In the corporate environment, this means you stop being the helpful, ever-available problem solver. Your responses to non-critical emails become delayed. You are suddenly booked when people try to pull you into pointless meetings. You stop offering solutions before you are asked. You make your intellectual capital a scarce and valuable resource. In the personal realm, it is even more absolute. You stop initiating contact. You stop answering calls immediately. You let texts sit for hours, even days. You do not explain your absence. You do not apologize for it. You simply are not there. Why is this so powerful? Because human beings are wired to obsess over a sudden void. Her entire system of control was built on your predictable availability. Your constant presence was the baseline, the thing she could push against to feel her own strength. By removing it, you remove the very ground she stands on. She will experience a psychological freefall. Her first reaction will be anger. Who does he think he is? This is a test. She is trying to bait you back into the old dynamic, to force you to explain yourself and thus return to the subordinate position. You will not respond. A man who wants to be loved will be discarded. A man who imposes his presence will be feared. Your absence is now your presence. It is a silent, unnerving statement of your new reality. Your world no longer revolves around her. You have your own orbit, and she is no longer its sun. Second, you will install silence. The silence you previously experienced was the silence of the ignored, the defeated. The new silence is a weapon. It is the unnerving calm of the predator. It is a strategic vacuum that forces your opponent to reveal their hand. When your boss condescendingly rephrases your idea in a meeting, you will no longer rush to defend your original wording. You will remain silent. You will hold his gaze for a moment longer than is comfortable. You will let the silence hang in the air, heavy and thick with unspoken meaning. In that silence, others in the room will become uncomfortable. Their eyes will dart between you and him. They will sense the power shift. You have not said a word, but you have communicated everything. I see what you did, and your cheap tactic is beneath my response. He who speaks first after this silence loses. He will feel compelled to fill the void, to justify himself, to perhaps even backtrack and give you credit. He will expose his own insecurity. In your relationship, this is your primary weapon. She sends a provocative text, a passive-aggressive jab designed to elicit an emotional reaction. In the past, you would have immediately responded, defending yourself, explaining, pleading. Now, you respond with nothing. Silence. It is the most powerful negotiation tactic in existence. It communicates that her emotional volleys no longer have the power to reach you. You are operating on a different frequency. Her tests, her drama, her attempts to pull you into her emotional chaos are met with a calm, indifferent void. This will drive her mad. She is used to you being a sounding board, an emotional sparring partner. By refusing to engage, you are not just ignoring her. You are invalidating her entire strategy. You are showing her that the rules of the game have changed and you are no longer playing. Do not reconquer. Replace with a sharper silence. Third, you will control the reaction. This is the essence of Dostoevskian psychological warfare. His characters were often slaves to their own hyper-consciousness, paralyzed by what others might think. You will invert this. You will become the master of your own consciousness, and by extension, you will control the consciousness of others. This means when you do choose to interact, it is minimal, unpredictable, and always on your terms. Your communication becomes a tool, not a reflex. In the office, you speak only when you have something of decisive value to add. Your words, once cheapened by overuse, now carry weight. Your brevity makes people lean in and listen. In your personal life, when you finally do respond to her text after a day of silence, it is not an apology or an explanation. It is a brief, emotionless, logistical question. Or better yet, a statement about something you are doing that has nothing to do with her. You are breaking the pattern. She expects neediness. You give her indifference. She expects an argument. You give her a void. She expects you to orbit her. You reveal you are building your own galaxy. This unpredictability creates a state of constant, low-level anxiety in her. She can no longer anticipate your moves, and therefore, she can no longer control you. She is forced to react to you, not the other way around. This entire operational pivot is fueled by a total and ruthless focus on building your own hierarchy. Your focus shifts entirely away from her, away from your boss, and onto the four pillars of masculine power: the financial, the physical, the social, and the symbolic. You will become a zealot for self-improvement. You stop spending money on gifts to appease her and invest it in yourself, in a skill, in a business, in the market. You stop skipping gym sessions because she's in a bad mood and start forging a physique that commands respect before you even open your mouth. You stop neglecting your own social circle and start rebuilding your tribe, a network of strong men who hold you accountable. You develop a sense of mission, a purpose so consuming that it makes her daily dramas seem laughably insignificant. This is the ultimate checkmate. You are not trying to win her back. You are making yourself into a man who has better options. The goal is not to make her miss the man you were. The goal is to make her intimidated by the man you are becoming. Be the absence that carries weight, not the presence that begs. Dostoevsky wrote, "To be in love is not the same as loving. You can be in love with a woman and still hate her. This is the cold truth you must embrace. Your previous state was not love. It was a desperate, fearful attachment. It was an addiction to her validation. The strategies of scarcity, silence, and unpredictability are not tricks to win back her affection. They are the surgical procedures required to cure your addiction. This is not a game of hope. It is a plan of action. You are not hoping she changes. You are executing a strategy that makes her behavior irrelevant to your internal state and your external mission. You are detaching your self-worth from her opinion and anchoring it to the unshakable reality of your own progress. You are moving from a position of emotional begging to one of absolute, untouchable power. The fear you feel right now is the death rattle of your old, weak self. Let him die. The path forward is clear. It is a war fought on the silent battlefields of psychology and self-discipline. You have now received your initial briefing. The question is whether you have the courage to execute the plan. To truly commit to this transformation, you must declare your intent. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and activate all notifications, for your re-education must be constant and unforgiving. Give this video a like as a salute to the death of your weaker self. And in the comments, answer this question with the cold precision of a strategist. Which of the two is the more powerful weapon in your current war? Unexplained absence or calculated silence? Your answer will reveal the nature of your enemy and the first step in your campaign. The war is not won in a final, glorious charge. It is won in the silent, suffocating moments before the battle even begins. It is won in the mind of the general who has already mapped every possible outcome, who has already accounted for the enemy's fear, his ego, his desperation. You have been trained to see power as a loud explosion, a dramatic confrontation, a public victory. This is a lie told by the weak to keep you predictable. True dominance is a quiet implosion, orchestrated from a distance, where your enemy becomes the architect of his own ruin. The man you were, the ghost at the feast, believed the game was about being heard. The man you have become understands the game is about listening so intently that you can hear the cracks forming in your opponent's soul. Let us return to that room, the one with the stale air and the polished table that reflects the hollow ambition of the men sitting around it. The stage is the same, but the actor has changed. You are there, a figure of unnerving stillness. Your superior, the parasite who rebranded your intellect and called it his own, is presenting. He is confident, charismatic, using the same buzzwords, the same condescendingly patient tone. He is playing his part perfectly, unaware that the script has been rewritten and the audience is no longer his to command. He is not just presenting a strategy, he is performing his own competence. And you, the silent observer, are his only true critic. You are not listening to his words. You are watching his pupils dilate when he tells a lie. You are noting the subtle tremor in his hand as he points to a slide he doesn't fully understand. You are decoding the micro-expressions of the other executives, their fleeting looks of doubt, their sycophantic nods that betray a deep-seated fear of him. You are not in a meeting. You are in a laboratory, and the human ego is writhing under your microscope. Finally, the moment comes. He finishes his presentation, and as a perfunctory gesture of inclusivity, he turns to you. Any thoughts? In the past, this question would have been a trigger. You would have either remained silent in fear or rushed to offer a correction, desperate for the validation he would never give. Both are reactions of the weak. Today, you do neither. You hold the silence. You let it stretch for 1 second, then 2, then 3. You let the entire room feel the weight of your pause. You are not gathering your thoughts. You are demonstrating that you are not a reflex. You are a deliberate force. When you finally speak, your voice is calm, measured, and devoid of emotion. You do not challenge his conclusion. You do not point out his flaws. You ask a single simple question. A question so precise, so surgically targeted, it bypasses his entire fortress of jargon and strikes directly at the foundational weakness of his plan. On slide 7, the projection assumes a stable supply chain from our Asian partners. Given their recent geopolitical tensions, what is the contingency for a 30% disruption? He is not prepared. It is not an aggressive question. It is a logical one. But in its cold logic, it is an act of supreme violence. You have not attacked him. You have handed him a shovel and invited him to dig his own grave. He stammers. He gives a non-answer about agile paradigms and proactive monitoring. The words are meaningless. and everyone knows it. The veil of his competence has been pierced by a single pinprick of reality. You do not press the point. You do not need to. You simply nod slowly, a neutral, almost clinical gesture, and then you fall silent again. Your silence is now more powerful than his words. It is an indictment. It hangs in the air, and in that void, the other executives begin to stir. Your question has given them permission to doubt. Another executive, smelling blood in the water, asks a follow-up, slightly more pointed question. Then another. You have not led an attack. You have merely pointed out a crack in the dam, and now the pressure of their own self-interest is doing the rest. You sit back and watch the man who erased you be disassembled, piece by piece, by the very people whose approval he craves. He is not being defeated by you. He is being consumed by the system he so expertly manipulated. You did not flip the chessboard. You simply revealed that his king had no clothes, and you let his own pieces turn on him. You leave that meeting before it's even over, citing a prior commitment that doesn't exist. You do not stay to watch the final act of his humiliation. Victory is not a feeling of elation. It is the quiet confirmation of a successful strategy. His fate is irrelevant to you now. Your objective was not to destroy him. It was to test your new weapons, to confirm your own power. He was merely the training ground. As you walk back to your desk, the sea of faces no longer looks past you. They look at you with a new kind of awareness. It is not friendship. It is not warmth. It is something far more valuable, a mixture of fear and respect. They do not understand what happened in that room, but they understand that you were at the center of it. You did not raise your voice. You did not claim credit. You simply became the quiet, unmovable center of gravity, around which the entire room was forced to orbit. This is the legacy you build. Not one of projects completed or promotions gained, but one of unspoken, undeniable authority. You have ceased to be a player in their game. You have become the architect of the board itself. Respect is not a gift they give you when you have earned it. It is a tax you impose on them through your sheer, unshakable presence. It is a territory you claim and defend not with loud proclamations, but with the cold, hard border of your indifference to their opinions. You do not need their validation. You do not need their credit. You do not need them to see you. You only need to see them in all their pathetic, transparent frailty. Dostoevsky's underground man was paralyzed because he was hyper-conscious of his own humiliation. You have become powerful because you are hyper-conscious of theirs. You are the mirror they cannot avoid looking into, and they will shatter themselves against their own reflection before they ever dare to challenge you again. This is the final silence. It is not the absence of noise. It is the presence of absolute power. Your transformation from a ghost in the machine to the operator of its deepest levers is now complete. The path was never about getting even. It was about getting above. Now, you must make this philosophy a permanent part of your being. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and activate all notifications, because this is not a one-time lesson. It is a lifelong operating system. Give this video a like to permanently seal the tomb of the man you used to be. And in the comments, answer this with the cold finality of a predator who has cornered its prey. Now that you understand the strategy, what is the very first relationship, be it professional or personal, where you will deploy the weapon of strategic silence? The goal was never to win their game. It was to make them afraid to play against you ever again.